It's the highest profile killing of a supporter of Russia's war in Ukraine. This weekend, a pro-war blogger died in an explosion at a cafe in Saint Petersburg. Russian authorities blamed Ukraine and have arrested an anti-war activist. But as Nick Schifrin reports, the cafe's owner, a well-known Putin ally, says the plot is thicker.
In front of his own photo, Vladimir Tatarsky accepted his Trojan horse, a bust of himself. Moments after this was filmed, the bust exploded and destroyed the cafe, leaving his dead body and a mangled mess. Tatarsky was a well-known blogger and advocate for Russia's war in Ukraine. He was actually Ukrainian-born, a furniture maker turned convicted bank robber turned ultra-nationalist influencer who's shown off the Kremlin to his 560,000 followers.
We will defeat everyone. We will kill everyone. We will rob everyone we need. Everything will be as we like.
Russia blamed this woman, anti-war activist Daria Trepova, who brought the bust to the cafe in video posted by a Russian news outlet. Russian authorities accused her of acting on behalf of Ukrainian intelligence. But the cafe's owner begs to differ. Yevgeny Prigozhin was once known as Putin's chef, who owned a catering service that catered to the Kremlin. But he's emerged from the shadows to help fund and fuel the war as the chief financer of the Wagner paramilitary group. He personally recruited tens of thousands of soldiers, many from Russian prisons, and sent them into hell. Bakhmut once had a population of 75,000. Today, Russia has destroyed it and calls it victory. Wagner has led the fighting and dying. Prigozhin posted this photo. The U.S. says more than 30,000 Wagner soldiers have been wounded or killed. Last night, Prigozhin claimed Wagner had seized Bakhmut center. The flag says, to the memory of Vladimir Tatarsky. Prigozhin, like Tatarsky, is a pardoned former convict who became a prominent ultranationalist. And Prigozhin had given his cafe to Tatarsky's group. But today, Prigozhin posted an audio message saying the explosion was not caused by Ukraine's government.
I would not blame the Kiev regime for these actions. I think there is a group of radicals who hardly have any connections to the government.
Some Russian government officials claim the woman arrested in Tatarsky's death worked with Russian opposition leader Alexei Navalny's organization. He is currently in Russian prison, and neither Navalny nor his group have had any connection to any violence in Russia. To explore the implications of this bombing, we turn to Candace Rondeau, a senior director at New America, a Washington, D.C.-based think tank. She's written extensively about the Wagner Group and its leader, Yevgeny Prigozhin. Candace Rondeau, welcome to the NewsHour. Thank you very much. Tell us more about who Tatarsky was and why his death is so significant.
Vladimir Tatarsky was probably one of the most prolific military bloggers, pro-Russian military bloggers on the social media channels that are popular with Russian speakers. He had a huge following. Sometime around 2017, 2018, he became very popular for starting a social media vertical called Reverse Side of the Medal, which is basically a mouthpiece and kind of a soapbox for some of the most extreme ultranationalist elements of Russia's right wing. And in particular, Reverse Side of the Medal is a kind of cultural hub for the Wagner Group and Russian mercenaries and soldiers of fortune.
And so fast forward to the full-scale invasion. He is one of the most prominent bloggers, not only advocating for the war, but in fact pushing the military and the government for more war.
The one thing to understand about Tatarsky and Reverse Side of the Medal is that job number one was to stoke passion for war. Job number two was to make sure that that passion could be converted into the mobilization of forces on the sly, on the stealth. And he succeeded in doing that by kind of selling the Wagner Group brand. Stealthy, shadowy, high-risk, covert operators, masked men doing daring things in Donbass. And he did that very well by actually cultivating relationships with real-world Wagner Group fighters and bringing them onto his YouTube channel, doing short videos and Telegram. And he basically grew the brand through that social media channel. But also in St. Petersburg, he was kind of becoming like a cafe influencer. That's why the street food #1 restaurant was hit essentially Yevgeny Prigozhin had given it to Tatarsky as kind of like a headquarters for this cultural move of ultra-nationalist pro-war sentiment to be mobilized, not just on the media channels, but also in real life.
And this wasn't only, as you've pointed out, Prigozhin's cafe. This was a neighborhood seen as Prigozhin's turf. How much of this is about sending a message, as far as we can tell, to Prigozhin himself?
That restaurant is just 5 blocks, not even 3 blocks from Yevgeny Prigozhin's very first high-style restaurant. It's called the Old Customs House. I mean, it was a big mafia hangout, a big hangout for Vladimir Putin back in the day when he was deputy mayor in Saint Petersburg. That whole block, that whole little area where this bombing occurred has been basically Yevgeny Prigozhin's playground and turf and headquarters for the better part of 30 years now. And so striking there really sends a message not just to Prigozhin, but to all the people who are sort of involved in his business enterprises that they better stay on watch.
You point out how long Prigozhin goes back with Putin, but more recently he's been fighting with some of the senior Russian defense officials. Sergei Shoigu, the defense minister, the equivalent of their chief of staff, Valery Gerasimov, he's accused both of them of actually killing Wagner soldiers in Ukraine. And there's yet again today another gap between what Prigozhin is saying and the Kremlin talking points. What's behind that divide?
It's very hard with Yevgeny Prigozhin to discern how much is theater and then how much is real. But it has been clear over the last, I'd say, 9 months or so, since the Battle of Bakhmut began in Ukraine, that he finds himself at the front lines of basically a meat grinder. And there's been a lot of complaints about sort of shell hunger, that is to say, not enough ammunition, not enough shells to go around for the artillery that's required to beat back the Ukrainian counteroffensive in Bakhmut. And he's become increasingly louder and louder. And he's had the backing of hundreds of thousands of followers on channels like the one that Vladimir Tatarsky used to run. And so that's kind of given him a sort of sense of confidence. He's biting the hand that feeds him, basically. At the same time, he also seems to have a political strategy, one in which he understands that the minute the Battle of Bakhmut falls one way or the other, his utility politically and militarily is vastly diminished. And so in a way, the peacocking that you see online, the constant sort of, stream of invective towards Shoigu as well as Gerasimov, all of that is also part of a larger design to insulate himself from the potential that he becomes expendable. But I think that this message today, with the bombing of Tatarsky, seems to say, indeed, you are expendable, Mr. Prigozhin, and you'd better be on watch.
Candace Rondeau, thank you very much.
Thank you.